Welcome to our new episode of Speak Revenue. Remember, revenue is not a goal, it's a result. But a result of what? In this show, we turn our eyes from the output towards the inputs. We speak to sales leaders and entrepreneurs about their journeys. Join us on our quest to uncover and learn the root causes of success. Let's unpack what worked for them and what didn't. Today with our guest, Vince Beese. Hi Vince, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Thomas.
Great you're
Appreciate
here.
it.
Awesome. Let's get started. Let us know. Who are you? What are you doing? What do you do? What makes you so successful?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. What makes one successful? I think over my career, which has been fairly long, so that makes me old. But I've been in the technology space for over 25 years. And I think why I've had success from role to role, from job to job, is I always focus on the important things, the things that really matter, the things that really can produce results. And then focus is one thing, but then it's execution, right? I think a lot of people will talk about having plan and strategy, but if you can't execute, you can't be successful. So I think it's those two things combined, the ability to focus on what's important and the ability to execute.
Yeah, that's sometimes not easy to differentiate. What are the really important things and what is maybe not so effective to work on?
That's a great question. I think what's the important things to focus on depending on what company you're at and what your role is. So
Yeah,
whenever I was a sales leader or CRO, it's the bottom line that's most important, right? Growth. And what are the things are you measuring towards those goals in regards to growth? And then thinking about, okay, what are the programs or strategies are we going to have that are going to give us the biggest increases in those metrics? I think it comes down to a couple of things. It's certainly having a plan and a strategy, but it's the people, right? I think over my career, what I found is to execute, you have to have the right people, the right team. So my job as the leader is to provide the vision, provide the direction, empower the people that out of my organization and my team, give them that vision and direction and let them execute. If we've trained them right and given them right guidance, they should be able to do that, right? So again, I think for me, from a leadership standpoint, my job is to just guide and provide the right direction. So we're going down the right path, right? And when things aren't going right, which doesn't happen sometimes, you got to veer another way or take a different path. That's your job as a leader to be able to do that. See the things that aren't working, correct almost in real time, and then lead the team in that direction. And then the last piece I'll say, communication is critical if you're going to do, whether it's a new vision or change, you've got to be able to communicate that new vision.
exactly. So that's already some great advice. Focus on the right things that really help achieve your goals. Yeah. Today, we are going to talk about human interaction in sales culture. I think that's a really interesting topic, and I'm really looking forward to focus on this one. What do you think is missing currently when it comes to human interaction?
I mean, I think we live in interesting times, right? Certainly the pandemic impacted the entire globe, but the group of people at companies I think it impacted the most, quite frankly, are salespeople. And because salespeople are typically extroverts, they crave human interaction, they thrive off human action, right? It wasn't so long ago that a sales organization would be located geographically. And in those geographic locations, they would go to an office, whether it's the headquarters or a sub office, and you would meet and you would have a room dedicated to salespeople. In that room, you have human beings doing a similar job in a similar position, feeding off energy. There's literally when you would walk into a sales room, there was an energy that you can feel. There was a hum, there was a buzz. You knew you were in a sales organization, and people really fed off that. So that's one of the things, Thomas, I mean by human interaction specifically to salespeople. But now it's also happening is we don't even have human interaction, period, meaning these same salespeople aren't visiting customers at all or a lot less frequently, right? That's number one.
Yes.
They're not even meeting their boss as often as they used to, or their colleagues or peers as often. We're all missing this human interaction. And I think, honestly, at the end of the day, it's absolutely impacting performance. I'm not saying people still aren't performing or putting up results. What I'm saying is, overall, I believe in most sales organizations that don't meet or don't have these human interactions, their performance has definitely gone down.
What are effects on salespeople that you've seen? The people that are extroverted who are not able to join on-site event or meet other people regularly. Is there something general or any pattern?
So I recently done some surveys with this cohort, specifically salespeople and sales leaders. And what
Oh,
I hear
interesting.
them say is the thing that I asked the question around, do you work from a remote location today? A home office, not a office that's remote, but a home office. And I asked the question follow up, if you do, what is it that you miss about going to an office? And one of the top things that they say is the concern of this isolation, right? I'm here in my basement office by myself. Camaraderie, being with others like me. Like I said, going to the water cooler, having quick conversation, catching up on life events and things like that. Loneliness. I think that's the biggest thing. Can they do their jobs? Yes. Can they do their jobs at as high a level if we were all together? No, because you're not as motivated. Let's be honest. Like I mentioned before, back in the description of being in the sales pit or the sales room with others, it's the energy that brings you up, just like American football or European football, right? Like the concept of team, the concept of getting in the locker room before the big game and getting everybody fired up for it. It's the same thing in sales. I got to go do an hour of phone calls. It's not easy cold calling or warm calling or following up with prospects. But if I could do it with others, it makes it more enjoyable. They still enjoy being in sales if you're in sales, but you don't enjoying it as much by yourself. It's better as a team event than it is as a solo person sitting in a remote location by yourself.
What do you think about virtual office solutions?
I think, first of all, this is all an individual decision. So if your company says you're a remote employee, we're happy with you working out of your office, great. And if you are productive and high, you're keeping your performance high, good for you. Now, let me answer your question. However, if you miss having some level of interaction, sense of community, there's a couple of things I think people should do. Join local events, whether they're sales related, entrepreneurial related, business related, whatever it is. Get out there and join events where you're going to meet other like minded individuals. Go to conferences. I've told sales folks that report to me, like, go to as many trade conferences as you can, meaning we don't have to have a booth. You can just go. Let's sign up and get you there so you can have that human interaction. And then there are locations where you probably, everyone lives, that there's a co-working or something like that community wise, that maybe you pop in there once a week or once a month or whatever it is, just again to reacclimate ourselves to human interaction. Because what's happening, Thomas, is that we've lost our ability to socialize. And I think I'm of a certain age. Most of my career was very important for that socialization, but I think folks coming out of college and young and just after that, they need to really hone that skill of socialization and being social and creating relationships. And that's really hard to do if you join a brand new company and right from day one, you're remote. I'm saying that people need to put the effort and their leadership needs to put an effort to recognize that and get them together as often as possible. And I'll say this one last thing. If you're a sales leader out there and you have a remote team, 100% remote team, if you aren't at least on a quarterly basis getting together as an organization, that is an absolute missed opportunity. It's an opportunity to unite the team, to build your sales culture, and more importantly, to re-energize your team. Every time I've ever gotten together with my team or teams, you come out of those meetings like, yes, I'm ready to go, right? It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
again, breaking the huddle and you're just ready to go.
Yeah. That's my experience as well. Any team event, team coaching, maybe you go somewhere for a few days and spend some time outside, hiking on mountains, for example, and also coaching a bit, performance always increases afterwards. But at some point of time, it starts decreasing.
Yep.
How do we have an idea on or any approach to realize when it's decreasing again to steer against it and go on the right path again?
Yeah, I think we do. I think the obvious way to see if performance is going down is look at someone's consistency. And if the consistency goes down, meaning you have a top performer, but you're seeing results go down, it goes again back to
Yeah.
being a good leader. It's having a one on one conversation to say, hey, Thomas, what's going on over the last quarter? Is there something in your life that's impacting what you do? Because you always set the standard at such and such. So it's having those real conversations. And again, what's the best time to have that type of conversation? Face to face. Another reason to bring someone in potentially. Hey, I'm going to be in New York. I see you're in New York. Let's get together. Let's have a conversation of what's going on. Because I think sitting eye to eye, you get the real emotion and feelings from a person if they might be going through something. So that's my approach, right? Is to, if I see performance suffering from someone who's a consistent performer, it's to have look at the numbers, number one, but then it's to have a real conversation. And it's your job as a leader, honestly, to improve, right? To make these improvements, to recognize these things, to motivate your team, right?
Do you think people are aware of this? Sales leaders are aware of this, and that the trend might change in future? Because what I rather see is companies forcing people to join office again and not spend too much time at home or any co-working space maybe. Do you think that will change from both sides, leader perspectives, but also people perspectives, that they really want to go to the office again, or maybe it's very specific for salespeople in general?
Let me answer the first part of your question, which was, do you think sales leaders understand it's their job to motivate, see someone who's underperforming and motivate them? If there's sales leaders out there today that don't understand that, they better wake up today and understand it. Your job is not to look at spreadsheets and view numbers. Your job is to get the best out of the human beings that are in your organization. And it's your job to make sure if they're failing, that you're helping them perform at a higher level. Now, some things just don't work out. That's just the way it is, but it's your job to put every effort into making that happen. And I'll be honest with you, Thomas, early in my career in sales leadership, I didn't get that. I didn't get that why is it my job to motivate them? They should be coming in self-motivated, which is true, but everybody needs a pick me up, right? And that is your job. That's why you're in leadership, right? You're there to, on the hard days, to suck it up and give a positive outlook for the team, even when it's not even the best day for you. That's your job. And if you don't want that job, go move into a different job. Now, forced into work, I was at a very large company called Meta. My previous company was acquired by Meta, and we became part of Meta. Prior to leaving Meta, they were putting in a 3-day work week. I think there were a lot of employees, and I was remote, so it didn't impact me. But folks that were in areas that weren't considered remote were required then to come in for 3 days a week.
Okay.
I haven't heard any employee at any company ever say, yeah, you should enforce that and make me. You're not going to force employees to go back into the office when they've got accustomed to, working from home. So the question becomes, what's going to motivate someone from leaving the remote office that they're comfortable in, which they believe they're more productive, to go back into an office? That's the question that every company needs to ask, and not make it mandatory, because I don't think mandatory is ever going to work. Is it going to work? Yes. Is it going to make employees happy and more productive? No.
So what's your solution to bring more human interaction back to sales people? How could we achieve this goal?
So, very simple. Whether this is at a company level or for a sales organization level, the reason people will go back from their home office, which they're comfortable, is sense of community. Oh, I'm going to office on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because I know these people are going to be there, or we're going to focus on these things, or I'm getting extra training or development with these things. So on those days, for this example, that might motivate me to come into the office. And by the way, while I'm there, I'm like, I do miss certain things about the office, because I think what's also happening is I think people forget what some of the big benefits were of being in the office together. So think about those events, those things to build community that your employee base or your sales organization would be motivated to do. And so it's going to differ from company to company, from organization to organization. And that's where I think it goes back to surveying or sending out a questionnaire to your employee base about what's important to you. What do you think you
Okay.
need to make you a better performer, right?
I've seen examples where people just leadership or the board wants people to come back to the office, but nobody would come. They just didn't find the right way. So where would this lead eventually? It seems like maybe those people don't really like to work for the company at all.
Maybe it's a dare. I don't know. Maybe they eventually get fired. I don't know.
Mhm.
I can tell you this, it's not a good recruiting tool.
Yes.
Imagine this, that these big companies, it goes out that By the way, they say it's remote, but they're going to eventually make you come in, and you started the job or you interviewed for the job because you thought there was flexibility in that. You're going to have a hard time recruiting. So that's where I think it could backfire. But again, let me just go back to what we started talking about. I think it comes back to culture.
Yes.
If your leadership sets the culture, because it always starts from the top, your culture. If your leadership sets the culture at the company, there's great companies out there that are 100% remote and started as remote. But I will bet you this, that they have their culture down more so than any other physical company because they understand that we're not together. So I better build this nucleus of what our culture is. And then when we do get together, which I bet you it's pretty frequently, meaning at minimum once a quarter as a company,
Yeah.
they really emphasize those things to build that culture and connection, right? So I'm not here to preach to anybody that you should be 100% remote or hybrid or whatever. It's a case by case situation. It's a company by company situation. But I will tell you this, that it will hurt your culture if you don't eventually have face to face time as a sales organization, as a company, as a leadership team, whatever that is. We're all fooling ourselves if we think you're going to perform better by never seeing human beings again and never getting together on a consistent basis. Human beings crave interaction. That's what differentiates us from the animal kingdom, right?
Yes. Yeah, I really like the emphasis of common values. It becomes even more important the more remote people are working. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can't just be words on a board or when you walk in the office and you see the company
Yes,
culture words. That's lip service. Like you've got to back that up. That's got to be
exactly.
reiterated. And I'll say this about it. I think that whatever your company culture is, the most important thing when you're recruiting, when you're hiring, is one of the big check marks is that does this person meet, do we believe this person meets our company culture and what our culture is all about? And not just lip service, like real, truly, like work that into your process.
Yeah, that it's really some basic work and a lot of effort to define those when you're starting a company. Maybe if you look back a few years or maybe just 1 week, what did you try that didn't work at all?
So many things. That's the thing, right? You got to try lots of things. So life in sales is an experiment, right? Let me give you more of a recent maybe example. Yeah, I think one example is I felt that the team needed more interaction on a weekly because the team I'm working with right now is we're all remote. And I felt that we needed more of this concept of stand up. And I quickly found out that they were fine with doing one on ones in our one team meeting a week and that they didn't need two other stand ups. That was me overvaluing that.
Okay.
And so once I saw that they didn't need this or they didn't want it, we canceled it. So my idea didn't work out, canceled it. The team was happy with the level of interaction we had. That's certainly, I think, one that really
Mm.
resonated more recently.
The importance of regular stand-ups with the whole team probably depends on the maturity of the company, right? It's probably much more important for early stage startup compared to a
Yeah,
big
I think that's true.
Series B
And
company.
also,
Yeah.
and also the employees, meaning if you have a younger, less experienced employees, I think they crave more of that interaction where more experienced, tenured, they're like, I got it, boss. I appreciate what you're doing. I don't personally need it myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's it.
How did you, having a look at those stand-ups, how did you realize it's not working and when?
So we made them optional, right?
Okay.
We made it clear that if you have a customer meeting, you should attend that customer meeting. This is less important than that, and it is optional. And if you don't want to come, so less and less people over time started showing up. That was the clear indication.
Very clear sign.
If I'm the only one there, then I'm like, yeah, I don't need it.
Okay. Yeah. The conclusion of just canceling it, that's pretty close. All right. But you stick with the one-on-ones.
For
That
sure.
was still important in this case. Okay. Maybe, especially as you've got so much experience. What are a few lessons learned you would like to share with the audience?
So, one of the things I was talking about the other day was cold calling or warm calling. It's become, some people think it's dead, some people don't do it anymore. And by the way, in some organizations, they only have their SDR or BDR team do cold calls, meaning like the quota carrying sales reps don't do it. And what I was trying to emphasize in lesson learned in cold calling is it's not dead. Matter of fact, most people aren't using office phones anymore. They're using their own personal mobile devices. The fact of the matter is, if you do have somebody's personal mobile number, you have a way better chance of connecting with that person. So then what I'm trying to teach is that if you are going to cold call, there's certain important things you should realize when you do that and when you're calling people's mobile phones. One is, don't be surprised when they pick up the phone. Oh, I didn't like that. You're calling because you expect them to pick
Right.
up the phone. So that's number one. Number two is when they do pick up the phone, don't jibber jabber about nonsense. Get right to the why you're calling. Hey, Thomas, how you doing? I'm calling because I work at this company. We do this thing, and you look like other of our customers. How we help do X, Y, and Z, and that's my reason for calling. And don't ask for more time. Do you have 10 minutes? Because what's going to happen when you ask if you have 10 more minutes? You're going to say no. So just gauge the reaction, and like human beings to human beings, if there seems to be some level of interaction, ask another probing question. So my point is, treat a cold call like you're calling a friend and like you're calling a human being, and you'll have better outcomes. And so what I'm trying to do is educate people. It goes back again to re-socializing again. Awkwardness of calling somebody you feel you don't have a relationship with. And how do you get that started? How do you eventually build rapport? And I think building rapport starts with earning the right to build a rapport and having a normal conversation, not, I'm calling you to sell you this thing. Like, yeah, you're a salesperson. I do recognize you're here to call me to sell something. They know that already. So just get to what's important for them. What's the benefit for them? And react. So much of sales, right, Thomas, is about reaction. We could have everything scripted, but when something changes based on that script, how do you react to that? And that's the most important thing with cold calling. You could script it all you want, but it's something Thomas might say something differently than I expected. And how do I react to that? How would a human being react to that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do, is try to teach them when it comes to cold calling, how to be very human on those conversations, right? To build that
Yeah,
rapport.
yeah. In some cases, there just is no general advice. There is so much advice out there on cold call, creating cold call scripts, and either you should mention or ask, do you have a few minutes? On the other hand, you could ask, is it a bad time to call right now? But depending on the situation, you just couldn't ask or choose not to ask.
Yeah, and I think there's a regional flavor to that too. Obviously, you being part of Europe, from country to country, the cultures are different and how you might do it.
Yeah.
So take that into consideration, right? I can tell you in the US, because we're so direct, that if you ask somebody, do they have 10 minutes, they're going to say no 99.9% of the time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sure. I would love to talk about those topics for much longer, probably easily 4 hours, but we are at the end of the episode. All right, everyone. I want to thank you, Vince Beese, for being my guest today, for joining us, sharing such valuable insights. Huge shout out to all our listeners. Your support means the world to us. Remember to check out our website at speakrevenue.com for a full transcript and additional resources. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your listening needs. It really helps get the word out. Also follow us on LinkedIn and Insta or on YouTube. We'll be back soon with another great guest. Until then, stay curious and keep listening.